Welcome to the UN Brief. Today we interview Shiko Ben-Menahem, Director of Research of the Singularity Group, an investment fund and a think tank in Zurich. He participated at the GESDA Summit last week. We spoke about technologies that are actually of great interest and how diplomats and policymakers can become even more acquainted with these deep tech companies. Also, we spoke about the 2023 and what we expect for the upcoming summit. Thank you for watching the UN Brief and don't forget to subscribe.
Both as a director of research at the Singularity Group, but also as a professor of technology and innovation management, I'm constantly exploring the latest scientific and technological advancements that are out there in the world, and the way in which they find their way into industry and into society, right? So that's how I came to become, how I became interested in GESDA and the reason that I joined. And actually, my main takeaway was that there's this great importance of the international diplomatic community in the equation of scientific development that until participating in GESDA, I was really rather oblivious to, that this was such a critical role that diplomacy has to play. I think both as a guardian of equitable scientific practice, but also as a conduit for scientific outputs by shaping science policy and being part of that conversation. Yeah. So it's I was really compelled by this platform and the conversation that ensued there about scientific advancements that are in early stage of development, which I think is extremely important, very compelling and very timely. So I do see this very important role for diplomacy there, to protect, but also to support the development of science and technology. I think a great example of that is this Open Quantum Institute that was also showcased, kind of showing the important role that a platform such as GESDA can play.
Because we think about diplomacy as being something done behind closed doors that's more political. But of course, technology plays an increasingly important role in our day-to-day lives. So it's no surprise that suddenly there is this interest in actually being, more proactive and create this platform. I think
that's right.
Great promise. That platform. And as you mentioned, the Institute of Quantum Computing as well should be a great opportunity for collaboration across cultures, across nations.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The Singularity Group invests in deep tech companies, right? Tell us a little bit, what is your investment thesis at the moment and what sectors you are interested?
Sure. Yeah. So let me point out also that there is actually a very interesting overlap between the way that we approach investing in innovation at the Singularity Group and the way that GESDA actually anticipates scientific development. So GESDA identifies these key scientific platforms with the help of hundreds of scientists, and those are then broken down into smaller topics and subfields, and then identified these emerging research topics and mapping the scientific advancements with an anticipation of 5 to even 25 years ahead, right? So at the Singularity Group, we engage in a very similar effort, in fact, but with a focus on applied science and technology. So we call that applied innovation, innovation that is out there today and is moving the world today. And we have 10 technology domains that we monitor very closely. These include artificial intelligence, like GESDA does as well, but also new energy, advanced materials, robotics, extended reality, IoT. It's really a very broad scope of large technology buckets, if you will. And for each of those, we continuously maintain very detailed timelines. So we try to find the application areas, the application technologies that are generating revenue today. And we separate those from the areas of applications that lie far in the future and application areas that may have become commoditized or otherwise less exciting, actually, from a growth and an investment perspective. So very similar to GESDA, we rely on industry experts from our Singularity think tank. So we engage actually 35 technology experts on a very regular basis. So with each of these experts, we talk about twice a year, and we have roundtables to identify what are the technologies and the advancements that are moving the world today and that are finding their way into applications in the market. And these people are entrepreneurs that lead tech startups, scientists, industry executives, all people with very deep technological knowledge, but also knowledge of the market, right? So which technologies are in demand and are being applied. And they help us then to understand which innovations are worth pursuing also indirectly as an investment product. So once we have those technologies mapped, then we apply our own scoring, and we come up with the most innovative companies in the investable equities universe. And then we construct the Singularity Index, which is an innovation benchmark that contains the most innovative companies. And out of that, we construct a Singularity Fund and Singularity Small and Mid. So that is always kind of an up-to-date sample, if you want, of the most advanced technologies that are finding their application today. And concretely, you can think in terms of course, renewable energy sources are of course very important today. We identify renewable diesel, for example, as something that is of interest. In the area of AI, we tend to look at technologies that help organizations to improve their business processes and create value for customers in improving customer orientation. It's really across the board that we monitor these technologies. I'm happy to discuss particular examples of those as well.
Yes, it would be great because we talk about fintech quite a bit here in Switzerland, right? There is even a called the fintech valley, I think it's called, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So is that an area that you've been focusing on as well, or is that something that it's not of interest? And
definitely, yeah.
Do you have any telehealth companies or health-related companies? Because this is another area that seems that there is a lot of interest.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, both of these areas very important. Important to note that we focus on publicly listed companies, right? So these tend to be larger companies. We don't invest in startups, even though we are very close to startups because they make part of our think tank. We have a lot of CEOs of startups that help us understand these technologies. In the area of you asked about telehealth and fintech. So fintech, electronic payment processing, very, very important as we all experience in our daily lives. Digital payment has become really widespread, right? We use online digital payment and also in-store in physical settings. We hardly carry any cash around. These are all technologies that are very heavily dependent on the ability to identify, of course, who we are. There's a large security component to that, to have secure payments. Fraud is a big problem in payment networks these days that requires state-of-art cybersecurity. So that's a big focus area. Fintech plays a very big role, of course, a big disruptor. Companies that enable different parts of that, really, the identification of individuals. So around security in Switzerland, there's a lot of cybersecurity startups and fintechs focusing on that part of secure payments. That's very important. Online payment platforms. We have open banking regulation coming out that really enables new forms of payment platforms, and also really changes the online payment landscape that we know, consisting of these large players like PayPal and Visa and MasterCard. They play a big role there, but increasingly we will also see interbank solutions, all kinds of smart applications that allow direct transfer of payments. So that's a very important space indeed, as you point out. Second one that you mentioned, telehealth. We tend to think of health even in a broader sense. The digitization of health, right? The remote remote monitoring of patients, but also connected health, meaning that we have more and more medical devices that allow patients to be continuously monitored, right? In the area of diabetes, a huge and important topic, as we see the UN predicts a continuous rise in the population, but also an aging population. So diseases such as diabetes, you know, these we will see the numbers of people that suffer from diabetes increasing very significantly over the coming decades. So new technologies play a huge role in making that manageable. We see digital health, connected health applications and devices, you know, continuous glucose monitoring devices that are connected to patients' smartphones and help them to stay connected to their healthcare providers.
And what would be what would you expect for the next GESDA event? Because they are planning another one next year. They say that's going to be even bigger. And so what are some of the recommendations that you'd have or things that you'd like to see happen in that space more?
So I'm glad you asked. I would be very happy to be part of that, and I'm much looking forward to that. By the way, I think it's very impressive for a second summit to have this, you know, this level of people that were there, but also the way that everything was set up in a really impressive way for such a young organization. So I'm very much looking forward to see what they have in store the third time around. I think there are two major things that I think are important as GESDA continues from my perspective. First, I'd like to learn more about science and technology at GESDA. So I felt that there was an emphasis on diplomacy, not so much on actual scientific insight and on the technology. So I would like to see that featured more. Second, and I think this is related, I do believe that for a platform like GESDA to be successful in the long term, it needs to foster dialogue not only between scientists and diplomats, but among all the key stakeholder groups that contribute to scientific progress and to the translation of scientific insights into valuable applications. And for me, that really means that actors across all stages of the translational process need to be actively involved in the discourse and in the platform like GESDA. And industry has an important role here that I feel is currently underrepresented at GESDA. And I think today the state-of-art scientific research and technological advancements take place not only in the labs of leading universities and public research organizations, but in the R&D labs of commercial organizations, you know, and quantum computing and artificial intelligence, like focus areas of GESDA, are great examples. But I would argue that that's also true for state-of-art research in the social sciences. If you think of behavioral and sociological research done at Meta platforms and Alphabet, at Facebook and Google, you know, those are at the forefront of our knowledge in these domains. And that also goes for a lot of innovations coming out of startups, by the way. And it is important to understand and anticipate the implications of technologies. And you cannot do that without industry players, I believe. So you cannot beat them, and so you have to join them. And I would add that I see it as a risk for society, actually, nowadays, that diplomacy and policymakers tend to structurally run behind the innovations that companies churn out, often years behind. And I think you can talk about how AI or the metaverse, all these big technology concepts, how they will affect our lives in the future. You can talk about that all day long, but AI is here. The metaverse is here, you know, and the ethical challenges are here, and they are here now and not 5 and 10 years ahead. So we have a bit more time with topics such as quantum computing, perhaps, to have that conversation. But there too, I will bet that innovation will outpace policy unless there's a very close collaboration between science and industry and policy shapers. So the challenge there really is that these are not cross-disciplinary debates, but these are cross-paradigmatic debates, I believe. When I was at GESDA, I felt a bit like I was entering a whole other thought world, you know, one where people luckily aren't afraid to talk about very big problems and important concepts. But at the same time, they're a bit less versed in the concrete world applications, if you want, of applied innovations as they are here today. So that is something that I would, give as my 10 cents of advice, I think.
Right, yes, the participation of technology companies too and researchers within this
Absolutely, yes, yeah, definitely, yeah.
Already in the application of so many of these technologies, right, and quite far ahead in a way. As we say, policymakers are always playing catch up with the technologies, right? So
unfortunately, yeah, but I don't know if that needs to be the case. If there is a close collaboration and a close dialogue, there will always be a bit of running behind, because policymakers, diplomats are not the ones that are, doing the science. They're not the ones who are creating these new products and services, but they need to be very well versed in them in order to be able to, GESDA puts it great. It's about anticipating, right? So only if you anticipate, then you can be in time. But to anticipate in a world that is moving so incredibly fast, things run very, very fast. You need to act fast also.
Thank you for watching the UN Brief, and don't forget to subscribe,